Hi, Year 12s. I'm just continuing on with talking about what you can include in your creative writing story. I've talked about motifs, personification, internal voice, references to memories, and like speculation about the future. I just wanted to touch on dialogue. We've practiced a little bit of dialogue, and I would encourage you to have a go at including a little bit of dialogue, just because it breaks up your story. It makes it a little bit interesting. I mentioned before how a lot of your stories just sound like your character's thoughts the whole way through, and it's like a big slab of your character's thoughts, and it kind of sounds a bit rambly and that there is no build up of tension or there's nothing else going on. So you can just do a small paragraph of dialogue and make it like a past memory in order to keep it interesting and add a little bit of tension and anticipation as well. Um, the use of pace. So if you have like fast moving kind of short sentences talking about heart beating, talking about someone not being able to breathe, that adds to the tension. Um, and then again, you can make your sentences longer and describe a little bit more when it's more of a calm setting also. So if you are wanting to add tension, consider how your character is feeling and how that would manifest in terms of action. The last thing that I have really been hammering is vivid descriptions, using adjectives, interesting verbs, adverbs. Spending time describing what does your character hear, see, smell. Um, if you look at things like the colours of the Derwent pencils in 72 Derwents, the hospital smells in Laminex and Mirrors, breastfeeding the letdown reflex in $5 Family, she spends a paragraph simply describing in as much detail how things look like, what kind of sounds are being heard, what characters are smelling. And this adds to the experience of the story. It really makes a reader feel like they are part of the story. So that is something to be really aware of and spend a lot of time doing in your story as well. I just wanted to point out Kate Kennedy's use of the following interesting verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. This first sentence is in waiting, and I have highlighted in pink all the adjectives she's using. Remember, adjectives describe a noun. Yeah. So dull anguish, like a bitter taste in my mouth, heart like a shallow dish of water. I was desperate not to tip, filling my chest. That estuarine feeling of something ebbing away, those symptoms that had kept me so stupidly hopeful, evaporating like a rainless cloud. So instead of saying anguish, like a taste in my mouth, a dish of water, a cloud, she has gone the extra kind of step to explain, okay, it's not just anguish, it is a dull anguish. It's not just a taste in my mouth, it is a bitter taste. In doing so, she's being even more specific so that it's called distilling the experience, just making it really clear what experience she's trying to convey to the audience. Then there's different verbs. So filling my chest, ebbing away, evaporating like a rainless cloud. It's not always this character is doing something. There are different verbs to explain the same thing. And lastly, it's adjectives adverbs which make things really interesting as well. So gently flexes, not just flexes, gently flexes. She places his hand wordlessly, determinedly over his heart. So again, it's not just she places his hand over his heart. It's how does she do that? She does it wordlessly and determinedly. So that's something worth thinking about as well. This is what this is what makes your writing even more specific, even more clear, and more sophisticated. So this is something I want you guys to be practicing this week. Some helpful tips. Avoid retelling the story. Don't just tell me what we already know. I want you to add something more. What insight? are you trying to convey about this character, or about the idea of vulnerability, just say, or tenderness? What is a cause of conflict? What is a consequence of conflict? What is the consequence of not feeling good enough in a relationship? What is the consequence of lack of communication? I want you guys to tell me what you think, and you're conveying that in a creative story. And how do you want your audience to feel? Do you want your audience to feel, really attached to a particular character? Do you want your audience to feel sad? Remember, empathy is a key aspect that Kate Kennedy wants to convey. So, how are you going to convey that? My next tip is it's better to zone in to capturing a snapshot of an experience rather than telling a whole story. Remember, the story of waiting is just all about her in a waiting room about to have her scan. It's just a snapshot of her experience, and then it flashes back to memories in the past. So you don't actually need to spend time saying 1 week later this happened, 3 weeks later this happened. You can actually just distill one experience and zoom in on one scene, but then use that scene as a springboard to flash back and forth into the past and discuss the future as well. Some other things not to forget: grammar. A lot of your tenses sometimes are, some people have chosen to write in past tense, but then it changes into present. Even your perspective. Some people chose to write in first person perspective, but then it changes to third person perspective. Make sure it's consistent. The next one is vocab. Are you using new and interesting words? And one way to do this is like how I've showed you in this checklist. And then punctuation. Are you using the right punctuation, especially for dialogues? Because some people are being really lazy about that. So this checklist is in MS Teams and in your resources. I would really encourage you to use this so that you can make your essay the best it can be, your creative story the best it can be. Okay? And as always, let me know if you've got any questions.